Hey everybody, this video is for actually one of my neighbors who is having a bit of trouble with her computer. And apart from that, first off, I just wanted to say I am sorry, so sorry for the thing. I mean, you know, I guess you and your husband found out, and then your family found out somehow, and now my family found out. What a goddamn mess. Anyways, I'm sorry. You know, obviously, going to be some blowback about that, but anyways, all right. Hopefully, my cat won't be too annoying through this. So this is just about installing drivers, and specifically in this case, graphics drivers, but this will work for any type of driver. So why would you want to install graphics drivers? First off, if you're having some kind of performance glitch or some type of issue, that might be one reason. Although you should check to make sure you're getting enough power, that you have a big enough power supply. If it's a laptop, plug it in and see if the issue goes away. Make sure it's not running too hot, like if it's dirty, if it's full of dust or hair or whatever. Those can cause issues as well. But if none of those things apply and you're having performance issues like screen tearing here, or if you have some type of artifacting, that one's tough to tell. Something like this, where you're getting like blobs of different colors that shouldn't be there, and you're sure it's not like a game or the software that you're using, and you're sure it's your hardware, one of the first things you might want to do is check your drivers. Now, before you do any of this, run Windows Update. So you can get there just by going to Settings. You can go to Settings from clicking this, or you can straight up type in UPD and check for updates will come up, and check your Windows updates. Sometimes driver updates will be in here, sometimes they won't. And there will be a thing that says, I think, optional updates or additional updates for driver updates that aren't required, but that you might want to do. So check there as well. If you're not having any issue, and then there's no reason to update drivers generally. So if you're running a newer Windows, let's say Windows 10, and you're not having problems in games, you're not having problems with any other software, don't bother. If it works, don't try to mess with it. If you're having issues like this, or if you've got a new program that requires better drivers, or if you've just installed a new graphics card, that's when you would want to do driver updates. Usually the drivers that come with either new cards or new computers are old when you get them, and so stuff like this can happen even with a perfectly fine graphics card and system and setup. In that case, if there's already drivers installed, you can try to install the drivers directly, and usually it works. But if it fails, or if you have issues, then you'll want to get a Display Driver Uninstaller. So here it is in MajorGeeks.com, which is a freeware site that I like to go to a lot. They've got freeware and shareware and other stuff, and you can search or whatever, but it's called Display Driver Uninstaller, and this should be the newest version as of today, which is February 18th. You can see this is a 2021 version. And basically this, I'm not going to go through it, but this will allow you to uninstall nVidia, AMD, or Intel graphics drivers and get rid of some of the extra junk that might be in there that is sometimes sort of stuck. You don't necessarily have to do this. It's kind of recommended, but not required. So that's all I'm going to say about that. If you need to find it, you can type in DDU download, and it'll usually come up, Display Driver Uninstaller. And when you uninstall your drivers, all of a sudden the desktop will look funny. It'll change resolution on you. You'll usually get a couple of Windows beeps. That's normal. What you should do is download the new drivers, the new package. We'll talk about that in a minute. Download the DDU program, then run it, and then install the new graphics drivers after a restart. That's typically the way to do it. But honestly, only do that if you try to install a set of drivers and it fails. Next thing is, if you've got Windows 7 or Windows 8, I'm sorry, if you've got Windows 10, but your graphics card is older, like from the Windows 7 or Windows 8 time, often you can get it to work using compatibility mode. I'll show that quickly in a little bit here, actually, not right now. So first thing first, you've got to figure out what graphics cards you've got. And to figure that out, you can open up Computer Management, and this works for any drivers. To get to this, right-click this PC, and you can click Manage. And when you do, this window will show up. Click Device Manager, and then you're looking for display adapters right here. So mine shows AMD R9 200 series. Now, if you get like a little warning symbol or a question mark, and it's not showing a display adapter, or if it says Microsoft Basic Display Adapter, then in either case, you still don't know what it is, and you got to find the right drivers. There's a trick to that, and this works for any hardware. You can right-click the unknown device. It'll say unknown device, and do properties, and then come to, let me see, details, and this value wouldn't be here. It would show unknown device. Click through this until you get to hardware IDs, and then you notice these are mostly the same. Look at the top one, right-click and do copy, and then paste it here and do driver, enter. That's the hardware ID, and you notice that shows AMD Radeon R9 200, also shows HD 7900. For my display graphics card, the R9 200 280X is a Radeon HD 7980 gigahertz edition or something. It's basically an older version that was rebranded as a newer version. I know that, but that's why it's showing both of them. Either of them will work. It's the same driver. So once you know if you've got AMD or nVidia or Intel, search for AMD driver or AMD driver download, and you'll see the first thing that comes up will be this page. This is if it's AMD. You can do this auto detect and install. I don't personally like to, because then you have to download other stuff. The other way to do it, once you know what it is, like I know it's an R9 200 series, I can do, let's see, Radeon, these are all RXs, R9, R9 300. All right, I know mine's an R9 280X. You might not know which. If you don't know which version, choose something in the middle, but let's go with 280X and do submit. And here we are. Now you need to know if you've got 32 or 64-bit Windows. In this case, they've got drivers for Windows 7, 8, 10, but sometimes they'll only have it for 7 or 8. So like older cards might only have it for, older versions of Windows. Like I say, we can get around that. If you don't know if you've got 32 or 64-bit, right-click this PC or my computer and do Properties. Now, if you don't have this icon here, you can get to it from here. Right-click, Manage, or Properties, same deal. And let's see, it'll say here if it's Windows 10, 64-bit operating system. If it's Windows 8 or Windows 7, the screen looks a little bit different, but look around and you'll see it'll either say 32 or 64-bit, and that matters because the drivers are different. So now I know I've got Windows 10, 64-bit, and a Radeon R9 200 series. So, plus, you see there's a couple of different releases, older versions, and then this auto detect thing. This one is for enterprise. That doesn't apply to me. You would know if that did apply to you, basically. So that leaves me with two options: the newest version or what they're calling the recommended version. So I'm going to get the recommended one. And when you see this WHQL, WHQL, that is, I think, Windows Hardware Qualified, something with an L, I don't know. But that's sort of like the tested version. And you see this is the newer version. I've already got it installed, but when you click download, let's see. Yeah, see, you don't have to fill this stuff in. It's already popping up. Do keep. And we'll let that download just so I can go to the next part. If you've got nVidia or Intel, similar deal. Type in nVidia driver And there it is, download drivers, which takes you to this page. And again, you'll know what one you've got here, so then you can choose, okay, it's probably a GeForce. If you've got a notebook, you might need to change the series. For instance, one of my other laptops has a NVS, let's see, what is it, an NVS 295? Yeah, I think my other laptop has a 295. Still, we'll leave it on 1064-bit. Download type, production branch studio means like again, the qualified version, the better version. New feature branch is less stable. So go with production, and then English, search, and then download. And then once you download it, it's just a simple installation, and you'll see that in a moment. Regardless of which vendor you have, they're different, but it's a simple step-by-step install, and they sort of walk you through it. Going back to this real quick, again, you can do the same trick for any hardware that shows unknown. You can click details and come down to hardware ID and search for it, and it'll tell you the vendor and it'll tell you the model. And actually, when we look at this in hardware ID, 1002 is AMD. I forget what nVidia is, but the first four numbers are the vendor number, and then the next four are which actual hardware is it. And so that tells Google what your hardware is, so you can search for the driver from there. I'm going to close that. Here is the software for AMD. Similar deal if you have nVidia. If you have Intel, you can do this automatic thing, or you can search. So like Intel, let's say you've got an older HD 4000 notebook, okay, Intel HD Graphics 4000, and you can see Intel graphics for Windows, Windows XP 64-bit, and this also covers Windows 10, 8, and I can tell you the other three here are Windows 8.1 64, Windows 7 32, Windows 7 64. So this covers all the new stuff. These ones are older ones. You would download this, and let's see, here again, it's showing a couple of different ones. 32, 64, 32, and yeah. In this case, you've got zip or exe. Go with exe. That's an executable. Zip will give you a folder with all the stuff in it, including the software. It's easier to just do exe executable. So I've got Windows 64-bit. I would click this. And you see that's even smaller yet. But let's open up the Radeon one now. Again, if you're running Windows 8 or Windows 7 and there's no software available for it, one of the tricks you can do is right-click, do Properties. Once you've downloaded it, right-click, do Properties, Compatibility, and you can do Run this in Compatibility Mode for Windows 8, or usually I'll do Windows 7, and it tends to work better. I have had this happen on older video cards, like nVidia 210 or AMD Radeon like 5450 laptop ones, where I was putting Windows 10 on, it worked, but I had to run it in compatibility mode. You still need to get the correct bit, so if it's 32-bit, get 32, if it's 64-bit, get 64, but after that you can run it in compatibility mode for Windows 7 or Windows 8, and it'll install. Anyways, cancel, just double click that, open it up. I might even have this one installed already. And the first thing it's going to do is ask you where it wants to expand it. So in this case, it's going to go to the C drive in a folder called AMD. Now this is 2020-11-2. Let me see if I have any of them in here already. No, I don't. And let me see what version I've got. Not sure where it shows the version in here. Anyway, I'm not too worried about it. I'm not going to update mine, but rather I'm just showing you. No, I don't want that. So that's the panel once you do get it installed. Anyways, this will extract it to the C drive, to this folder. And after it's extracted, then it will start installing it. So I'm going to do install, but I'm going to cancel it in a minute. And what you'll see is now there's this folder, C drive, AMD. Here's the software. And actually, if this messes up, if something were to, fail, I can go back to this folder now. AMD does that, nVidia does that, and I think Intel does as well. It extracts the files, and then it runs itself from there, but you can manually run it later. So like, for instance, if I installed all of this and then had a problem, okay, I could reboot it, do the Display Driver Uninstaller program, run that, reboot it again, and then I can come back into here and click Setup instead of having to re-download the whole thing. When you're done, by the way, you can delete that folder and you can delete this. Once the driver and the software is installed, you don't need these installation packages. One other thing you can see, it might take a couple minutes to extract it. My computer's not very fast, honestly, and so it's taking a second. Is there anything else? I think that's about it, really. Run the Display Driver Uninstaller only if you have a problem, and reboot it after you've run it. When you open that up, it's pretty obvious. It'll say uninstall AMD, uninstall nVidia, uninstall Intel, and you can choose. Honestly, it's probably worth it to, especially if you've got a used computer, run the AMD uninstaller, then run the nVidia uninstaller, then the Intel uninstaller. Just do them all. Display Driver Uninstaller gets rid of some junk that is sometimes left over from old drivers. And you can see this is the annoying installation thing. It's detecting the configuration, and then it'll say, do you want to really install after this part's done? Yeah. And in this case, it gives you a couple of options. The install location I would not change, but basically from here, just do install. You might have to click next once or twice. Again, I'm going to cancel this one because I don't need to upgrade mine. I can, but my games and stuff work fine. I don't want to risk something not working. I'd rather just stick with what's good. So, are you sure you want to exit? Yes. And you see this is still here. You can, again, you can delete this when it's done, but just the one that says AMD or nVidia. Do not delete anything else. And honestly, it's all the same. You may as well just keep it there. It doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't take up much space. And that's about it. So yeah, that's how to install drivers. Again, go to this PC, right-click Manage to figure out what display drivers you need. Sometimes you'll have Intel and nVidia if it's on a laptop. If that's the case, get the nVidia ones. That's usually called, it'll show in here too. It'll show Intel, maybe Intel HD 4000 and let's say nVidia NVS 295 or whatever. Usually with ones like that, Microsoft has pretty good drivers, but you may want to go to the nVidia site. And in that case, if it's got two, Intel and nVidia, download the nVidia drivers and run those. Yeah, that's about it. Hope that helps.